shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Can I talk to you today about praying for our leaders? When I say leaders, I'm not just talking about political leaders. I'm also talking about pastors and ministers, people that have been put in position of authority over our lives. Many feel like most leaders are corrupt. So instead of praying for them, we judge them. And I've even seen cases where we curse some of these leaders. But God feels differently. Whether political leaders or spiritual leaders, God ordained them to be over us. So we owe them nothing but our prayers. There's nowhere in the scriptures where God instructed us to judge or condemn our leaders. And I'll read two scriptures to you really quickly. 1 Timothy 2, verse 1 to 2 says, I exhort therefore that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings meaning political leaders, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. And Romans 13 says, verse 1 to 2 says, let every soul be subject unto higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist them shall receive to themselves damnation. So in other words, if you are cursing and judging your leaders, you yourself will be condemned for doing that. God has not called us to judge our leaders. He has not called us to condemn them. Maybe this is what we need to transform our nations. Maybe all that God expects from us is to just pray for them, and somehow He would lead them to make the right decision, to make decisions that will move the nation forward. Let's stop judging them. Can we lift them up in prayers? Why don't you pray for that corrupt leader in your nation? I recently heard of a pastor that fell into adultery, and because I hadn't seen the pastor for a while, and I was asking after him, and somebody told me that he fell into adultery, and somehow they kicked him out of the church. He was an assistant pastor, because if he was caught in adultery. He was having an extramarital relationship with the woman for about 10 years. But somehow, I hope somebody is praying for him, or was praying for him, for his restoration, because I know God is interested in such a pastor being restored. God is not looking to judge or to condemn such a man. He's looking to have him restored so that he can fulfill God's call for his life. God has not called us to judge people, especially in cases where they are falling into an adultery or falling into sin, or they have done something wrong. God is calling on us, is expecting us to raise them up in prayers, to support them with our prayers, and not to use our mouth to judge them. So remember to pray for one leader today. Pick a leader. Pick the president of your nation. Pick a pastor. That same pastor, that same leader that you've been judging, why don't you pray for them? And as you do so, I believe with all of my heart that we'll start to see that change in our churches. We'll start to see the change in our nation. God bless you.